In this video, I describe the 12 houses. The 12 houses are the most tangible part of a horoscope. And when I say horoscope, I'm talking about a birth chart calculated for the time of birth. Because the 12 houses signify tangible things, you can use them to test your astrology system, and you can also use them to verify time of birth. If you don't have a time of birth, you can use the houses to help identify a time of birth. That's not easy. It's easier if you've got a biography of 50 years. In other words, if you're 50 years or older. And it also helps if you have some clue as to the time of day. Like, for example, your mum says she thinks you were born in the morning, or your dad says you were born in the night time. That helps a lot, because in a day there are 12 possible rising signs, or first house. Rising sign, first house. And in a day, the 12 signs go through the rising sign. And if you've got all day to work with, that means 12 possible ascendants. And if you can narrow it down to the morning, then maybe there are 2 or 3 possible ascendants or rising signs, which will make the job of discerning which one is true much easier. I'm going to use 2 approaches to describe the 12 houses. The first one is a mind map, in which the directions up, down, left and right are assigned to different parts of the psyche. The second approach is a table, in which we look at 3 layers of meaning for each house. Layer 1 is a faculty, layer 2 is a manifestation, layer 3 is social value. And these 3 layers correspond loosely to childhood, adulthood, maturity. When we turn our eyes up, our attention is directed toward where we come from. Home, parents, country. Ultimately, we all come from the same place, but normally that place is beyond the boundary of recollection. When we turn our eyes down, our attention is directed to our own personal tasks in the world. Here we stand alone. Up corresponds to the 4th house, and down corresponds to the 10th house. The line from 4 to 10 is a long journey, punctuated by mistakes and obstacles. It is a personal journey of courage. Normally, a horoscope is drawn with the 10th house at the top and the 4th house at the bottom, which is fine if you're drawing a picture of the outside world. The sun is in the 10th house in the middle of the day, when the sun is above the horizon, and the sun is in the 4th house in the middle of the night. But a horoscope is not a picture of the outside world. A horoscope is a picture of someone's life journey. So when I draw the horoscope, the 4th house, which represents where someone comes from, will be at the top of the chart. And the 10th house, representing someone's personal tasks in the world, will be at the bottom of the chart. When I turn my eyes to the right, my attention is directed outward to someone else's point of view. That's the 7th house. When I turn my eyes to the left, my attention is directed inward, first house. The horizontal axis oscillates in a matter of seconds, contrasted to the vertical axis, which is a lifelong journey. Now let's do a diagonal cross. And I'm going to use, instead of my left and right, I'm going to indicate your left and right. So this is up to the left. And that's doing. Up to the right, feeling. Down to the right is thinking, and down to the left is the person bringing these three activities, doing, feeling, thinking. Down on the left, the person is bringing those three activities into balance. So if I use the corresponding zodiac, up on the left is an ox for doing. Up on the right is the lion for feeling. Down on the right is the scorpion for thinking. And down on the left is the water bearer for bringing these three activities to balance. We can use the arrangement of the YouTube interface in the browser of a computer to illustrate these things. If you're viewing this video in the app on your phone, there'll be a different arrangement, but you can still follow along. Up on the left is a red YouTube icon, which will lead you to your homepage. Also, there's a menu icon with three horizontal lines. So that corresponds to doing. Up on the right is a button, a red button, which says create. Perfect alignment for the fifth house. The feeling is warm engagement in what you are doing. Focused creativity. Down on the right is settings. I often go here to turn down the resolution of the video, so I use less data. My issue is with streaming TV, which is constantly changing the setting to HD and using all my data. And I have to constantly go down to the settings and change the resolution to down to standard definition, so I don't use so much data. And I get annoyed when I have to do that every time I enter a new program. The key word for down on the right is issues, problems, complexes, difficulties. Because we wouldn't think unless we had to. We would do what pleased us, but it's because we can't do that, because of the obstacles, that we have to think. That sends our energy towards thinking to solve how to get by this obstacle. Down on the left is volume, and a simple way to describe the 11th house is moderate, cool and collected with a long view to things. Across the bottom from left to right is a navigation bar to jump between different parts of the video. And when you like I said, when your eyes turn down, your attention is upon yourself and your own standing. So you move through the video according to your own particular interests. When you watch people talking, you can see them access different parts of their psyche. How beautiful it is when people's eyes move freely around their personal space, sharing the whole spectrum of their mind. You can see how sometimes they surprise themselves by finding thoughts lurking in the corner of their mind they didn't know were there. eyes that move freely around the circle, is a particularly feminine thing. It's captivating. Men tend to keep their eyes straight and narrow, which doesn't necessarily make them small-minded. Be aware that sometimes videos are back to front. Often when people record video on their phone, the screen is reversed, so it looks like a mirror. So even when someone is facing you, their right-hand side is your right-hand side. One way of distinguishing this is when text appears back to front. I wanted to share with you a mind map approach to the 12 houses because you can conduct research using your own experience. There are 4 houses missing from the mind map. They are houses 3, 6, 9 and 12. They're called cadent houses. We can assign these houses to fields of activity. 3 is neighbourhood, where you shop for groceries, where you walk the dog, and churches call it a parish. House 6 is your city. Often people travel across town for their job. For 20 years I drove a taxi in Melbourne. House 9 is country, culture, language and laws. In Australia, people set aside a whole year to travel the country. Mostly that means a lap around the coast with short diversions inland. And although the distances are vast, the culture is quite consistent. House 12 is the field of activity is the world. 200 years ago, it took several months to travel from England to Australia, and now less than 24 hours. And we have internet, which circles the globe almost instantaneously. In my second approach to describing the 12 houses, I have a table with the 12 houses listed on the left-hand side here. And I started with number 12, just as a reminder that the 12 houses form a circle with neither beginning nor end. Earlier, I described 3 columns: faculty, manifestation, and social value. Here I'm simply going to call them early, middle, and late. The middle column describes the result of having a strong house. And that's going to be the subject of my next video, how to calculate which houses are strong in a horoscope. Very important part of how I do astrology. Now, we're going to have a word for each of these places on the table, but it's important that you don't treat these words as prescriptive. Everything in life fits into the 12 houses, and learning which things go in which house takes time. And the description of the house will change depending on culture, depending upon circumstances, as in a spectrum. And so the words I'm choosing are intended to be, rather than prescriptive, suggestive. And there was something I was about to say. I've forgotten. So suggestive and so you will want to be able to describe houses using examples from people's lives. Yes, I thought of one for myself for the 12th house, but I'm not going to do that now. What I'm going to do to start off, we'll start with the 4th house. And the 4th house is home and parents and country, where we come from. Now, if we use home as an example, when we go home and close the door and maybe we can eat, we can sit down and put our feet up, we can have a shower, have a sleep. And what's happening is like recharging a battery. And when we are leaving the house the next day or whenever, we have initiative. We, having gone home, closed ourselves in, a little bit like going to heaven, where everything's neat and organised, and we rest and recharge, and then the faculty to start in the 4th house is initiative here. And then this manifests, if the 4th house is strong, as owning a home. Owning a home. And later, this turns into a social value, like kindness. This actually is capable of this kindness in the 4th house. And mind you, it's easy to be kind to people who like you and love you and look after you, or who depend upon you. It's also easy to be kind, but it's not so easy to be kind to your enemies. Bear that in mind. And this kindness is capable of self-sacrifice. From here, let's go to another house. The 10th. Let's do the 10th. So this obviously is a noun, but we're going to use a verb. Here in the 10th is implement. And later, in the middle of life, if this house is strong, the implementing of plans or strategies over and over and over with an objective results in expertise. And the social value here is courage. And this is different from bravery, when a young man, 18 years old, is willing to go overseas and fight for his country as a soldier. That's what we call brave. But courage might, not necessarily, but it might appear as someone who refuses to be enlisted in the army, to go overseas and fight for their country, and go to prison as a result, simply because they know where they stand. They know knowing's not the thing, is it? It's the courage to stand for their convictions. Now, for the 11th house, we spoke about the balancing of the faculties of doing, feeling, thinking. It has to do with the long-term goals, often beyond our own lifetime. And this means that that if this house is strong, what happens is people save or collect, accumulate, often assets, that they may be very, very wealthy if this house is strong. So what do we do? What do we call this? I'm going to check my table. So we are going to call, which we called it earlier, moderate, and we're going to call it moderation. And in the middle of life, if this house is strong, it's accumulated assets. And later, the social value is discernment. Here. Now, as I said earlier, the Caden houses 3, 6, 9 and 12 are difficult to define or measure. And probably the 12th, one of the hardest. I'm going to describe, when I put the 12th house here at the top, a couple of things happened in my mind. And it had to do with the fact that the 12th house is it rose. The 12th house rose just before the first house, which we identify with the first house. That's me. But the 12th house is what's just happened. And when I wrote that down, it's like, what just happened, question mark, or what just happened, statement. But here in the 12th, what's you need to focus on is what just happened, which has actually become it is somehow become the course of my life. You could use the word meaning. It's kind of like meaning, something which we revolve around. And the 12th house certainly has to do with lunacy, which is something which gets hold of, it's something irrational which gets hold of someone. And that's the kind of thing we're talking about. What just happened? And I have an example in my own life what just happened when I was born, which was important in the course of my life, is that my sister was born before. That's what just happened. Now, it was actually 3 years, but a very important part, because that was always in my life something which just happened. My sister came first. My mum and dad's first child, and I was the second. And it's interesting because both my mum and my dad were also second. And second child often makes their own course in life, apart from their family. And so, very important part. And what just happened. So here, someone with a strong 12th house contributes a very important thing to society: generosity. Because what just happened, I'm going to simply use a rather provocative word here: surprise. And this, a person with a strong 12th house is present, even though their world just turned upside down. What is that? I'm going to leave it blank. We're going to do the other Caden houses because I'll be happy when I get them done. They're difficult to define. The third, someone with a strong third house is a busy. But what's important is that they may be busy, but they do distinguish between what they should be doing and what they should not be doing. Yes and no. The ability to know this instinctively, quickly, what I should be doing, what I shouldn't be doing. Yes to this, no to that. And this means they have the social value is integrity. And the faculty, or early, what they have is energy. Sixth house. If the sixth house is strong, how do I explain this? The sixth house, where we earn income, is full of competition, competitors. It's like everyone competing for a limited resource. The pay rise, promotion, and what the social value for the sixth house is, sometimes I say calmness, and that's important, very important part of having a strong sixth house. But today I'm going to use the word content, contentment. This means they don't enter a battle that they won't win. Does that make sense? The fact that they don't need to win means that they will choose they will only fight the battles that they will win. You know what we're going to put here? We're going to put that first word I used, calmness. Ninth house, the other cadent one, which we simply described as a field of activity, which is the country, with the country with its culture and language and laws. A very broad, a very wide field of activity. It has to do with, yes, I know, what the early is to have a plan. Because of the big picture, the ninth house has a plan in which to enter that field. It's interesting that, yes, in order to work in a large field like a country, the laws are critical so that everyone can combine their, so that a plan can be fulfilled. In a way, we're talking about, we're kind of, actually this, see here, it didn't even come up, but in the 11th house, what happens here is associations, groups of people. And on this side, there is a kind of a preparation for that. The combining, the establishing of shared goals. And these laws are important that people can do this, that people don't make plans to enrich themselves. And I'm going here. This is a kind of, there's morality involved in the ninth house, and the social value is honesty. And it could go here, but in the middle of the ninth, for the ninth house, for a manifestation, difficult to do for all the cadent houses. It could be a mentor. Actually, it could be a father. Father's ideal because you have them from the start of your life in order to follow. And I'll tell you, just to illustrate this, I know one example of a person with a strong ninth house. I haven't seen it often, actually. And the person is Coco Chanel, who had an interesting start to life because her mother died when she was young, and her father, who may have been a mentor, but actually put her in an orphanage. And as she grew up, she did have rich male mentors. And that's how she moved, that's how she accomplished so much, because she had these mentors. And so that's how, it wasn't her father, who turned out to be, well, maybe, I don't even know that. That would take a whole lot more research to understand, to know more about what relationship she did have with her father after he put her in an orphanage. And simply what you are looking for a manifestation of a strong ninth house is a mentor, someone they admire. Where would you like to go? Which house next? We're going to do 2 about action, doing, the ox. So how does that manifest? It's quite simple, actually. Well, it's not simple because in the East, they are likely to describe a strong second house as being family, the leader of a family. But of course, that's a little, that's a fairly, it could be sexist. That would normally mean a man with power. In the West, this house, a strong second house, is just described as wealthy, money. See, family in the East, money in the West. They're talking about the same thing, and that is fundamental core value. You do what's valuable. And a strong second house means they do that well. It means that they are wealthy. It means they do wield power. If you're talking about a woman, it's more likely, it's a better choice of words to use the word rather than a powerful woman, a woman with class. And you know, the woman in Australia, who people may know or may not know, Ita Buttrose, an example of a woman with class. And wields power, yes, and even possibly more than a man would, because a woman is generally more socially connected, generally. But I'm a bit stuck. I'm going to use both words. I'm going to use power and class, the strong second house. What they offer of social value is progress. Does that make sense? Because of the ability to do. And when that's strong, it means progress. I'm simply going to use the word, 2-letter word here, do. This one is feel, and here I'm going to put the 5th house now. So this second house was doing, the 5th house is feeling, the 8th house is thinking, and the 11th house is the balance of these 3 things, if you remember what I did when we did the mind map. So feeling, what I'm going to do here is call this warmth. And it does have a clear manifestation, which it would be a good avenue of data research. Calculate people with a strong 5th house. How many of them have children? And of those that don't have children, how important are children of their own? How important are other people's children in their life? Because of this warmth of heart, it comes through as compassion. Let's do number 7. Number 7 is able to focus on another person. Let's simply call that, it's the ability to listen, to give the other person your attention. And a person who is a strong 7th house will have a partner. And the social value is understated if I use the word fair. What another person thinks, what I think, what's fair. This person is so good at this that it is a little, it's more than fair. And that is a special gift, which is like having flair for those situations where people have different points of view, but where, and maybe a different point of view to you, but where you are able to give both parties consideration, you and another, and possibly come up with a solution which means, which in order to come to that solution, you need to have transcend. You need to transcend the fact that your point of view is only one among many. So, and of course there is a picture for this, and that's the holding of a balance scale. And the point, the pivot is transcendent to the other two. So I'm going to use the word fair. I'm simply going to leave a certain amount of space between the F, the first letter of the word, and A, the second letter of the word, because that's where a transcendent L can appear when someone has a strong 7th house. Remember, I'm saying strong 7th, strong houses. That's what this middle column is all about. And that's in the next video. I will show you how to calculate which houses are strong. It's actually the core of how I do consultations. Fair, with room for flair, if appropriate. The 8th house I'm going to check my table here. The faculty here is patience. To think properly takes time. Yes, what patience adds to thinking is depth. That's what happens in the 8th house. Proper thinking can't be hurried. It means because layers of thinking take time. Thinking takes a lot of energy, doesn't it? It's like it can't be accomplished. Well, it can if it's linear, but if you want to be deep, if you want to think deeply, it takes time. The middle column yes, I know what I'm going to do. And this is different to what I've got on the table. It's just an example. I'm going to say this manifests, this patience manifests as know-how. And its gift to the world, social value, is wisdom. One more to go. The first house, me, its faculty is to witness. I'm simply going to use, haven't practiced this much, I'm simply going to use an image of the eye, which sees. Which will confuse people when they look at the chart. There's no word here. Is that a letter? No, it's not a letter. It's a picture. It's the eye which sees. And its social value, in the third column, is devotion, which means that they have, this is me, and when the strong first house has a good concept of themselves, like they're organized constitution, which means that they can they can lift their attention to something greater and give their life to something greater. And interestingly, it manifests, a strong first house manifests as a long life. I'm going to use the word longevity. Whoops. And with that, we conclude our video on the 12 houses. Remember, we made 2 approaches. The first one was a mind map in which the directions of space, in which we can map the psyche into the directions of space. And we used, actually right in front of you, we used the video screen, which in the browser, and how YouTube uses the different positions on the screen in the browser. And then we've used a table in which for each of the 12 houses, we've gone through 3 different layers: early, middle, late. And I'm signing off. I'll see you in the next video.